Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition, Sunday edition. We knocked a video out yesterday, had some really nice picks in that video. Alexander Sarr, anyone? I said he was a sneaky play going up against Jokic. He went absolutely nuclear. So if you got that one in there, you had a really fun time. Also, really liked SGA and Jokic as priority spends. They both got over 70 fantasy points. So whichever way you went, you were pretty pleased with that. And we had some other good plays too. I really like Jalen Green. He popped off against the Bulls as one would come to expect. And we also had some good value plays. And Taylor was on core plays, and every one of his core plays were good to great. Most notably, Russell Westbrook, who he was on all day. And then once we got news that Aaron Gordon was for sure out, Westbrook was a lock for him. Westbrook had 22 points and I think 11 assists. Yeah, so that was definitely a good play at 6K on DraftKings. So hopefully it helped you out. Hopefully you did some winning. We had a couple people hit in Discord. If you have not joined our Discord yet, take advantage of that. It is a free Discord where you can chat with everybody in there. You can share your lineups, just ask questions if you're new to the game. Just learn and grow, man. That's what it's all about. And then you can also access our core plays on Patreon. We have DraftKings main slate, FanDuel main slate, DraftKings night slate, and then we also have stuff brewing for MLB and football DFS, whether it be NFL or UFL. And of course, we have MMA DFS as well. We are cranking out some good ones, so come get into it, and let's start winning here. If this video helps you out in any way, just smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Both those things help us out quite a bit. And then, of course, come join us in Discord. All right, let's get to it. We go position by position, actually on the early slate for some reason. So let's go over to the main slate. That might take a second. But the funny thing is, weekend DFS is undefeated, man. Already on the early slate, we have Wendell Carter nuking and limited PJ Washington going off. So just prepare yourself for absolute chaos because that is often what happens. All right, we go position by position usually. On a smaller slate, I do like to go team by team sometimes, but we'll just look at all the options here to keep it simple and, knock this out pretty quickly. So up top, SGA once again looks good. We don't know yet the status of Jalen and Chet. If either of them are in or both of them are in, I think SGA takes a minor hit, but SGA still can be played at any time. I think the price is a little bit high if they're both in, but if one or both are out, SGA will maintain a massive usage rate. That certainly was the case yesterday, and he had 71 fantasy points, 48 real points. The back-to-back thing isn't that concerning because he's definitely dropped some massive bombs on the second leg of back-to-back before. It's pretty big game against the Bucks here. So I'm not that concerned. I don't mind paying up for him at all. The only problem is those guys could be in. It is the second leg of a back-to-back set, and you do have James Harden at $800 less, who, projects comparably. He projects just as well. So I think you can certainly make a case to go down and get Harden against the Hornets. That game, though, has a much greater risk of a blowout, 7-point spread. The game's in LA. And just the Hornets aren't good. I'm a little bit shocked that the spread's at 7. So it kind of makes me think, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. It's 13. So yeah, even more so. Harden looks like a really good play. Just definitely want to consider that. Then you do have Trae Young at 10K against the Nets. I really, really like this game. 228.5 total. If the Nets can keep it close, it could be very interesting. Trae is an interesting turning play, coming in about half the ownership of Harden and a little bit less than SGA, just cheaper than both those guys, and he does have a comparable ceiling. So don't mind him. LaMelo Ball against the Clippers, not the best matchup, not really the spot I want to pay almost 10K for LaMelo Ball, but for GPPs, he's in play. Damian Lillard, if Giannis were to sit out, I think Lillard's pretty interesting at 8.9. Otherwise, though, feels like paying a premium for Dame as the second guy behind Giannis against OKC, which is not a good matchup whatsoever. Feels like it's just not the right thing to do. I'd rather go up and get LaMelo or Trae, or just keep going up and get Harden or SGA. As far as spends go on the slate, those are the ones we would be looking at point guard. And right now, my lean is SGA, and we'll just see what happens with Chet and Jay Will. Just when you're looking at the blowout risk with Clippers against Charlotte, you're looking at the volatility of Trae and LaMelo. I mean, you're already paying like almost 10K for all those dudes anyways. Why not just go a little bit higher and get, the really nice floor and ceiling that SGA provides? But we can save here. There is Simons. Anthony Simons at 7.1 against the Raptors. Good spot. Really nice projection. He is coming in with ownership and he is questionable for the game. So obviously if he's out, we don't want to play him. And just the fact that he's gaining steam at 25% ownership right now And it's a little bit worrisome. Don't want to really play into chalk with Anthony Simons, who, as we know, is a pretty volatile performer. Certainly does have a ceiling, but like, look, last game, 18 fantasy points, not great. And there's another Blazer that I like a little bit better, and we'll get to him in a little bit. Dyson Daniels forever just okay against the Nets. Don't mind him. Just not a priority for me. Scotty Barnes not paying 8.3K for Scotty Barnes. Matchup with the Blazers is fine. You just don't know what the Raptors are going to do with the rotations. I don't really want to mess around with it. He's a tourney play, so there's that. He does always possess a ceiling, but like 24, 25, 27 minutes, like I'm I tend to believe that Toronto isn't going to max his minutes because they haven't been. So if we're only going to get 25 to 27 minutes of Scotty Barnes, that is a full fade for me. The nice thing, there is a value here. Dante DiVincenzo, 5.5 against the Jazz, looks really, really good, even if he doesn't start. No Mike Conley tonight. So there's a chance that Nickeil Alexander-Walker ends up drawing the start. He would also be in play. But I think between the two, Dante DiVincenzo looks a lot more appealing. Nice projection, nice price, good minutes, amazing matchup. The only issue really with Dante is he might not start, and he's almost 25% owned. I think it's good chalk. I like it. A little bit lower, Keon Johnson looks really, really good. We have no D'Lo, and obviously Cam Thomas is out for the year. So I do like the Nets against the Hawks quite a bit tonight. Keon Johnson is one of them. 5.1K feels a little bit too cheap. I think he smashed in his last game. 36 fantasy points. Hey, for Keon Johnson, that's a smash. So he looks really good. Obviously, the floor is really, really low with him. And he's not going to score like 22 points or whatever he had every single time. But the matchup is great. The price is great. And the role should be very, very good with no D'Lo to soak up usage and obviously no Cam Thomas. So I like him a lot, him and Dante. Both. Colin Sexton, no. Isaiah Collier, I do like him at 5.8K because we don't have Keontae, we don't have Jordan Clarkson, and we don't have John Collins, and it's Utah, so we might have even fewer options. Major blowout risk against the Wolves. This is a 14-point spread on the road in Minnesota, who already is a good defensive team. So am I looking to prioritize Isaiah Collier or any other Jazz? Not really, unless they're extremely undermanned. I think as it stands, though, 5.8K with a solid roll, I think he's an okay play. I prioritize him after DiVincenzo and Keon, though. Scoot Henderson with possibly more bodies out for Portland. 5.4K for him. I think it's an okay play. Like if Simons is out, I mean, I'm sorry, it's a great play if Simons is out. If Jeremy Grant is out and Simons is in, I think you can entertain him off the bench at 5.4. But if Simons is out, I would imagine Scoot would start, and he would look amazing at that price. I tend to think Simons is going to play, so I don't think Scoot is going to be a major priority, but he's going to be chalk and probably going to be a better play over DiVincenzo if he ends up starting. So just keep an eye on that situation. Kason Wallace smashed yesterday. It wasn't really that chalky or anything, just a couple OKC guys are out. They were out. Obviously, Chet and Jay Will. If that happens again, I think you can consider him at 4.1. Just really volatile, scoring-dependent guy. He's been really good. Getting big minutes right now with those bodies missing. So I think he's okay. He's a fine value, just not really going to be a priority. Jamal Shed is dead to me. Of course, this is where we all played him, 12.5 fantasy points when he got randomly benched for no reason. And then the next game against the Jazz, certainly, Utah is a good spot to use him. 19% usage rate, low usage rate. And yet he got 31 fantasy points in that game and like over double the minutes that we saw. Just really annoying stuff. I wouldn't imagine we have to play Jamal Shed for a variety of reasons. But one is that Scotty Barnes is there. RJ Barrett might be playing this game. He's questionable. I think if Barrett's out and knowing Scotty's limited, I think we can certainly consider him. But I would rather just play AJ Lawson at $100 less because it doesn't seem they are afraid of playing AJ Lawson. And apparently Jamal Shed is not playable because he'll help them win or something. I don't know. Jared Roden, I think he's in the G League. If he were to return, he would look interesting, but I think he's shooting guard only. No, he's power forward only. Interesting how the positions keep changing. Reese Beekman, 3K flat. He could get some run with no D'Lo. I think he'd been getting some run. Let's just check on Beekman real quick. Beekman, 19 minutes last game. Few games go 27 minutes. So not a great per minute guy. Not super productive, but if he gets minutes at 3K flat, I don't hate it as a punt. It just doesn't really feel like a slate like we have to do that unless you're trying to cram in SGA and Giannis. All right, over to shooting guard. We go Anthony Edwards, forever a great GPP play, pushing a 50-point fantasy projection. No Mike Conley, facing the Jazz. Like they have everybody else back though, so that's like the big issue with Ant right now. They have their guys. There's Julius, there's Rudy, there's McDaniels, there's Nas. So Conley's not really a high usage guy. So Conley leaving isn't really that big of a deal. You would think maybe DiVincenzo gets in the starting lineup and soaks up more usage too. It could make Ant take on more playmaking and just in general, maybe his usage would spike that way, but you don't really need a big sales pitch for a guy who's 9.1, has a massive ceiling, and gets the Jazz. So if you want to pay for Anthony Edwards at shooting guard, I have no issue, especially since there's just nobody else to pay for at this position. And he's kind of discounted at 9.1. So I do like him quite a bit here. He is gaining a lot of ownership at 29%. And this game does have major blowout risk. So two things to definitely keep in mind. If Simons is in, he is a better value, dollar for dollar. $2,000 less, only 10 fancy points away. But Ant is very interesting. Normally, I like Ant a little bit more if he's going to be overlooked, and that's just not going to be the case tonight. DiVincenzo is kind of cool because you could use him at shooting guard as well. We went over some of these other guys. Shadon Sharp looks really, really good if both Simons and Jeremy Grant end up missing. They're both questionable. So if they're out, I like somebody else a little bit more, but Shadon Sharp is going to look really, really good. He's going to pick up a lot of ownership too. He might be a little bit more interesting for tournaments if only one of those guys are in, or if only one of those guys miss, because then he's not going to be like an auto play. But if they're both out, it's going to be really hard to ignore him and these Blazers for sure. Keon Johnson can be used here. Kamara would get a boost, obviously, if Jeremy or Simons miss as well. He's a good value at 5.5. Norm is questionable. Not really going to pay 7.2K for him if he's back in limited, but obviously him possibly being back does potentially hurt other Clippers. Nah at 3.7 looks like a really good value against the Jazz. Even if he doesn't start with no Conley, he's going to get extra runs. So I think he is a good dive. I don't know yet if I'm going to make him a core play, just because he is Nah. He's pretty scoring dependent. He doesn't always get it done, and he's really chalky. So that could be chalk that I get away from and don't feel that bad about it, to be honest. Like, how many Wolves are we going to play on this slate? Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, they could get minutes for the Nets, depending on how shorthanded they are. I know for a fact we don't have Clowney and D'Lo, so that's all we know for sure. We're going to have to wait and see who else ends up sitting for Brooklyn. I already said Wallace, he's okay. A.J. Lawson, so don't mind these guys. They're just going to be guys that have low floors and don't really have a super reliable ceiling, but they offer value, so definitely want to consider them. At small forward, Kawhi Leonard looks pretty good against the Hornets. I just definitely am a little bit worried about the blowout risk here and his price. I think he's okay, but I think I'd definitely rather play Denny Avdia, who just looks awesome right now at 6.8K. Without DeAndre Ayton, he's had a usage bump anyway, so he's going to be a good play to me no matter what at 6.8. He's going to be owned no matter what too. If Simons and or Jeremy are out, though, he is just like the lockiest of locks. So he right now looks like a core play. If they are in, you could certainly make the case to fade, especially if he's going to get ownership, but he looks really good no matter what. Not a whole lot else to get excited about here. RJ Barrett, even if he's in, would be limited. Scotty Barnes, way too expensive. He'll be limited. But then we get Cam Johnson. We could obviously slide him over to power forward, but Cam Johnson looks awesome at 6.1. Mild concern that they could limit him or even rest him on the second leg of a back-to-back set, but he was killer against Boston yesterday, 47 fantasy points. He's been rock solid in all these games here. Obviously at 6'1", you want him to be pushing for like high 30s, low 40s at least. I mean, that's the hope, but he's not really going to kill you, even if he doesn't get there. Just a great play against the Hawks. I just hope he gets the minutes that we want him to get. Shadon Sharp can be used here too. He looks good. Zaire Williams, 4.9K against Hawks. He's a fine value as well. You can kind of play with the ownership when it comes to the Nets guys. We'll just see what that looks like. Kyle Kuzma at 5.6. Based off of his minutes alone, I think he's in play, and he's not very owned. So that is interesting. If Giannis were to randomly sit, he'd be a core play at 5.6, even though OKC is a really, really tough matchup. Dog can be used at small forward as well. That makes him, even more useful. I don't know if we're going to have like so few Raptors that we need to play Jameson Battle again at 4.4. But if Roden is still in the G League and they limit or sit RJ and Scotty, I think Battle could be in the conversation. Just not a good permanent guy, though. Even the other day when he played last 2 games, 38 and 36 minutes, he's just not doing much when he's out there. So I would prefer him to be sub 4K to take that dive. If he's going to be like chalky, I do not mind getting away from him at that price. Probably does it. Nobody new here that I didn't mention. Only one I'll say is the Quan Jeffries. Just because he's 3.5K, he's getting 30 minutes a game. Like for that price, he's hitting even 18 to 26 fantasy points. If he gets that, that's a win, I think, at that price. Not a fan of the matchup or him really, but he's a cheap guy who's starting and getting big minutes. Monitor the Jazz situation. They're obviously without a couple guys. You just don't know if they're going to randomly sit Walker Kessler or anybody else as well. So Bryce Sensabaugh right now is just like, like just okay at 4.3. But if any of those other guys end up sitting, he would look really good at that price. All right, at power forward, Giannis looks awesome at 11.6. The matchup with OKC is not great, but if they don't have Chet, I think Giannis would be like totally fine. He would dominate the glass against them and probably would not have as much resistance down low. It is in Milwaukee. It's only a 6-point spread. Really nice game here with a 232 and a half goal. So I would definitely not mind getting to him. Oh, here we have Taylor popping in. All right, 16 minutes through. We're only at power forward too, so we can actually use you a little bit. And then when we wrap it back around, you can highlight any of the plays you liked at the other positions too. Sunday appearance from T Sizzle. That's what we like to see. So I'm talking about power forward. I'll let you take over here. Obviously, Giannis up top. The only real concern for Giannis would be OKC is not really the most friendly matchup, and he did play yesterday. Where are you at there?
Yeah, it's a bad spot, but there's not a lot to pay up for besides Giannis and SGA. So he's in play by default. OKC is the best paint protecting team in the league. So like it is a brutal spot, but I'm always okay with Giannis or guys like that. We'll see how the ownership shakes out. I think Kuz is questionable. So maybe more usage for him. Maybe there's some extra minutes for some of these kind of backup types. He's fine. I'm not prioritizing him. I think Avdia is like a smash. And then like Cam Johnson, Julius Randle looks great at this position against Utah. I think Kawhi, if Powell's out, still playable. If Powell is in, I just have less interest in paying up for these Clippers in general, though.
Yeah, we are aligned. I'm very, very in on Denny and Cam Johnson, and I said the same thing about Norm and Kawhi. Didn't really get to Julius yet. I feel like Julius is like the kind of dude who like obviously very talented and cheap. 7.4K for Julius is still too cheap, but he also is like on the same team with guys who have good usage rates. I think just when you have especially Ant, like obviously Edwards is the problem there. I think price wise, you could definitely consider Julius. Good projection too, and it's the Jazz, so you can absolutely play Julius here. Certainly prefer him to Kawhi or Miles Bridges. Like Miles Bridges against the Clippers at 9.3, that feels a bit steep. No.
Yeah, but it's a small slate. So, if you need an ownership edge, I do think Bridges is still playable. Like he's been smashing. Yeah. The minutes are safe. Like Charlotte is bad, but they're not like Raptors or Utah tanking. Like they're playing their guys. So he's okay. I think McDaniels is okay. He's been producing. He's expensive, but even with Rudy Gobert back, he's been pretty secure minutes-wise and production-wise, so he's okay. I kind of like Chet as a mid-range play as well, assuming he plays without Jalen Williams. We've seen a ceiling from him. The minutes have been pretty volatile, but if he's in, and OKC could be thin on the wing a little bit, don't mind Chet as a Randall kind of pivot, assuming Randall's going to be more owned than Chet.
Currently, that is certainly the case. Like Denny's like super owned. And I talked about that where like obviously if Simons and or Jeremy were out, like he's just a super lock for me, but he's going to get even more ownership if that's the case too. So you could make the case to fade Denny at ownership. I don't really want to though. I think he looks like an awesome play. Any punts here at power forward you're in on?
I think so. LeVert is questionable. If he's out, guys like Reese Sachet, George Niang would look a little bit better. They're both around 4K. I don't mind that. Brooklyn, I'm sure you've talked about Brooklyn with all the injuries / guys they have missing from the lineup.
Yeah.
I think Trendon Watford, I saw that he was out earlier, but I don't think he actually is. So assuming he's in at 4-6 without Clowney, without Russell, without Cam Thomas, I think Claxton was questionable as well. Watford's a pretty good play at 4-6. That's a good match for Brooklyn. He's probably not going to be very owned compared to many of his teammates. So he's always fine for me.
I'm seeing an updated stats for Claxton. He is not on the injury report now. So that has me a little bit less interested in the other Nets bigs, but you just never know what's going to happen there. So wouldn't rule it out. Can we not do the Raptors stuff now? Because it looks like Pirtle's going to play. So can we avoid Chris Castleton and Orlando Robinson today?
Well, so
Castleton started last game again too, though.
Mobo is questionable. Like if Mobo's back, maybe Castleton goes away. RJ Barrett is questionable, and then Abaji is questionable. So like if those guys are out, I think you can play Colin Castleton if he starts again, but I'm not dying to play any Toronto. Like it's a situation I think you can pretty safely avoid just given the uncertainty, the shenanigans. Similar story with Utah. If they're out and Castleton starts, I think he's okay.
Yep, that's totally fair. All right, over at center, Giannis can be used there. Zubac, with everybody back, not super into him, but obviously he projects well, and the Hornets are a really, really good matchup, and he's not owned, so I don't hate it. Just the price is getting a little bit up there, especially if Norm is back. Julius can be used there. Your boy Chet can be used there as well. We do have a Kongwu against the Nets. That looks okay. Walker Kessler, in theory, is playable, unless he gets scratched late into the day, like he is one to do. Mark Williams, forever a GPP play, but I don't personally want to do that. Rudy looks pretty darn good here at 6K. What are you thinking?
Yeah, my favorite play here is Klingen. He's 5'3". His price never seems to move. The minutes have been up the last couple of games. They could be without Simons. They're already without Ayton. We think Grant's going to be out. Robert Williams is questionable. So it's really just him and Duop Reith that can play center tonight. Barry Wall, I think, is out. So I feel good about the minutes. The matchup is really good too. Toronto just gets nuked by opposing centers.
Is this not the matchup where Walker had 25 rebounds and 8 blocks or something?
Yeah. So like if you're going to play Klingen, this is the spot to do it. I feel similarly about Rudy though. Like Utah allows the most blocks and the most steals, and that's
play them
what
together.
Rudy does in addition to rebounding. You can. So I think they're both very strong plays. I feel better about Klingen just given the discount.
Yeah.
There is other stuff here though. Like Claxton's 5'5". You said he's not on the injury report anymore, so
what's it tell me?
Should be pretty good for him. He's cheap. It's Atlanta. That's an exploitable matchup for Brooklyn. I think even Dayron in a tournament, like even with Claxton in, is okay. Wouldn't play him together, but Sharp is such a good producer per minute wise that he can certainly get there for you at 4-4. Don't mind a Kongwu up at 7K. No Clint Capella. Minutes are generally safer for him with Capella out. So a Kongwu's a strong play. And then same stuff we talked about before. Chet, Giannis, Julius Randle, things like that.
Yeah, fully agree. I think the only other thing would be Filipowski if Walker randomly doesn't play. But yeah, center looks like, kind of using Giannis there maybe, or sliding one of those power forwards to center, or we're going down the value. I like the Klingen call. I'm kind of probably at him or Rudy right now at center. Don't have to pair them together, but obviously they're not expensive, so you certainly can. Okay, so that does it for position by position. If you want to, though, if you want to quickly highlight anybody that you really, really like for point guard through small forward, go right ahead.
Well, Brooklyn, like we talked about, is missing Russell and Cam Thomas. So like Cam Johnson's going to be great. Keon Johnson should be great. Tyrese Martin should play significant minutes. He's 4-5. I think that's a pretty good play. And then Zaire Williams, to a lesser extent, is fine. When it comes to point guard, it's really just SGA, DiVincenzo, Cason Wallace. I think Scoot, if Simons is out, is an awesome, awesome play.
Yep.
Not sure I can pull the trigger on old Jamal Shed, even with Emmanuel quickly out because of what happened earlier in the week. But in theory, he's a good play.
In theory. Lawson would look okay too, though, if those other guys are out.
Yeah, I just fucking hate that situation, so I don't really want to play it.
I know.
Simons, if he's in, is okay. Collier should be immune from the Utah stuff. He's under 6K. I'm okay with that. And then in tournaments, especially if Kuzma's out, I think Kevin Porter Jr. is a pretty interesting large field play.
That would be interesting. If I did not know Kuzma's questionable. I didn't see that yet. So I said Kuz at 5.6 just because the minutes he's okay. But like if Giannis were randomly ruled out, he'd obviously probably be a core play. So, but yeah, if he's out, they need somebody to step up and produce. All right. So do you have a flag plant for the slate and like a strategy that you feel really confident in rolling out?
I think Avdia is my favorite play, but that's way too obvious to flag plant. I think I'll flag plant Klingon. Like I think he'll still be owned too, but he's cheap. The matchup's awesome. The minutes have been better. I have been playing Klingon for a while, and he has not rewarded me all that often, but I do think it's an awesome spot. So he's the one I would flag plant, and then SGA on the high end. Like if I'm paying up for someone, it's going to be SGA over Giannis, I think. Pending OKC's injury report, they could be without Lou Dort. They could be without Aaron Wiggins, who missed last night. He's at 1.8 points per minute without Jalen Williams. Like it's insane. So even if Chet is in, which he should be, SGA is a smash for me.
Yeah. We kind of don't want to just repeat what you're saying here, but it's the same deal. Like Denny is like my favorite play right now. If those other guys are out, I think a lot depends on news. So SGA without J. Will and Chet is just easily the stud to pay up for. Like I was trying to compare him to like Harden and the other guys. Like Trey and LaMelo are just volatile as heck. Harden looks great, but that game has like a 15-point spread or something gross. It's just like SGA just seems like the obvious play. If like the ownership's going to be really slanted and or the other OKC guys are in, then you can start entertaining Giannis a little bit more, I think. But yeah, I think it's the same case. And then obviously the Nets situation. The Nets look really good. Nets and Blazers. Yeah, famous last words, man. Right? All right. So that's
and Timberwolves also look really good.
I know. I really like Dante DiVincenzo, so I'm sure that'll go
DiVincenzo and Alexander Walker.
Yeah,
you can play the Alexander cousins if you want. SGA and NAW.
Yeah, one of them will go really well, I bet. All right, thanks for tuning in here. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, come join us in Discord, and also check out what we got going on Patreon. We just did a giveaway where we did 50 likes to give away 2 free months of DraftKings core plays. And if this video gets 50 likes, we'll do it again. Thanks for watching and good luck.